Yo, ladies and gents, Boomer here, and welcome back to another Rocket League video. Today's video is going to be on the best mindset for improving in Rocket League. I'm going to be sharing some secrets with you guys on how to improve quickly and efficiently in Rocket League. Before we get into that, I do want to mention two things. I am a streamer over on Twitch. I stream every Tuesday and Thursday, so if you guys want to talk to me in real time or ask me questions, come stop on over for the vibes. I am also a coach for Rocket League. If you guys are curious in receiving a replay analysis or one-on-one session with me, feel free to check out the coaching section in the Discord. I will leave the link in the description below. Without further ado, let's get right into this. Alright, so this is going to be a more informal video. I've talked about this topic a ton on stream and during my coaching session with viewers. I figured the best way to go about this would be to talk to you guys as if I was streaming. So everything I'm going to talk about in this video is important, but if I feel it's getting too long, I'll cut out some of the fluff. So, I can be straight to the point with you guys. A lot of people ask me the question of what it actually takes to get solid and consistent improvement within Rocket League. Whether or not that be a rank up or, you just hitting your personal goals within the game. And I always tell people how heavy Rocket League actually is with pattern recognition, muscle memory, and straight up just hours put into the game, hours grinding the game. It seems there's still like a bunch of misconceptions that players have in this game, and hopefully this video will do a good job of helping you guys get the perfect mindset for getting better at Rocket League. They say it takes 10,000 hours to become a master at something, so what better way for me, as someone who's been playing this game for 9 years and 10,000 hours, who plays at the top rank and is even top 64 in RLCS qualifiers, to pass on my advice and everything I've learned while playing Rocket League. These feats I just mentioned wouldn't even be considered quote-unquote good in the Rocket League scene compared to the very top of the game, and I'm going to touch on that later. But before we begin, I'm going to ask you a single question. You, sitting there watching this right now, yes you, why do you play Rocket League? Do you play it for fun, or do you want to reach the top rank or even go pro in the game? I want you to pause the video and really think about that to yourself and then unpause it. Okay? So these things I'm about to share can be applied to both, but they're primarily for the player who wants to see the next rank up, who wants to reach the top level, and who wants to improve at the game, even go pro in the game. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to address is the stolen mindset versus the ideal mindset to have when playing this game. We're going to talk about the grind afterwards. What do I mean by stolen mindset? Since I'm clearly ancient and I've been around this game since its release in 2015, I want to tell you guys what the two biggest trends of every single Rocket League player I've ever run into are. Okay, so number one is I could be a higher rank, but all my teammates suck. Absolute classic. And number two is the self-deprecating Rocket League player. Now, I'm sure all of you can relate to both of these, but let's tackle the teammates sucking topic first. This is what I call a stolen mindset. We as a community are all guilty of this. I vividly remember the first time I adopted this mindset was I was watching a pro player back in 2016. I remember them just complaining majority of the stream about awful teammates who don't know how to play the game. After watching that pro player stream, I bought into this mindset that I understood the game better. So when I'd go queue ranked after the stream, I'd feel like all my teammates had no idea how to play the game and that I knew better. In all reality, that isn't the case at all. This type of mindset leads you to tilt queuing and absolutely bleeding MMR, and it is a very unhealthy mindset and never helps anyone, even top level players and pros, and it usually ends up in toxicity. With that being said, you have to think about this logically. So at the end of the day, a pro player has that right to complain because they are a professional player. So it's very frustrating for them when they get a player on their team that isn't up to par with the lobby, which is something that unfortunately consistently happens within Rocket League, especially on ranked games. So how do we counteract this mindset? First of all, I want to talk about the stages of learning. This is something that I didn't apply to a video game until I took it seriously and I wanted to genuinely improve at the game. And I'm going to give a brief rundown of what the 4 stages of learning are. If you guys haven't heard about this before, I'll put a visual up on the screen so you guys can follow along. Right, so here you guys go. This is the 4 stages of learning. I'm going to simplify the understanding of this and use a flip reset mechanic as an example. I could be incorrect on this. This is just my understanding of the 4 stages of learning, right? So you have stage number 1, which is unconscious incompetence, when you don't know that you don't know. So for example, you have no idea flip reset exists and you don't know how to perform it. Okay? Number 2, conscious incompetence, when you know that you don't know. So you can be aware of what a flip reset is, but you have no idea how to perform it, right? Stage number 3 would be conscious competence, when you know how to do something through conscious involvement. Meaning you know what a flip reset is, and you know how to perform one, but you have to think about it every single time you perform it. And then stage 4 would be unconscious competence, when you know how to do something through unconscious habit. Now, this is where you want most of your mechanical skill on Rocket League to be at, where you don't really have to think about it. It becomes the muscle memory or autopilot. So you know what a flip reset is, and you don't have to think about it every single time you go for it. So I hope that provides at least a very basic understanding of what the 4 stages of learning look like. So now we're going to talk about it and how we apply it to this mindset. So if we continue knowing now what these stages look like, you have to understand that everyone in the game, regardless of their rank, could be in one of the 4 stages of learning. Majority of the time, higher level players and professionals are in the 4th stage, where most of their game sense and mechanics are something they don't really have to put much thought into. Their muscle memory and pattern recognition are trained enough through thousands and thousands of hours to do these things strictly through habit. Meanwhile, that one teammate you get who's not up to par with the lobby could potentially be in a different stage of learning, such as the 2nd or the 3rd, meaning that they might have an idea but not know what's wrong, or they know what's wrong and they still are just making the mistakes due to the lack of hours. At the end of the day, it doesn't really have to be this complicated when it comes to a video game. Everyone is human, and it could just be a bad day, or you could just be having a poor game. So, enough about the teammates, and let's chip away a little at what this best mindset actually is. Okay, so let's try to apply these stages to ourselves and in Rocket League terms. This entire community loves to glorify ranks for some odd reason, whether that be a 6-man's letter rank, MMR, digital points, tags, mechanics, so on and so forth. Let's be brutally honest with what this all means, and then we're going to touch on a bit of that self-deprecation aspect that I mentioned earlier. This type of egotistical behavior is something that goes all the way up, and I'd say arguably even into the pro level. So instead of putting ranks on a pedestal, let's strip away the ego from everything here. We'll categorize it like this. You are a professional player, and you are paid to play the video game at the highest level. Okay, you are the very peak of the game. SSL, the top 0.1% of Rocket League players at the top rank in the game. This rank means you are most likely in the 4th stage of learning, and you are able to achieve this rank for a reason. You have a solid idea of how the game works, and a higher understanding of how to play the game at a top competitive level, even sometimes able to rival professionals, but not quite the top of the peak. And anything underneath SSL, you are still in the learning stage of the game. Now, if the ranks are stripped in these terms, everything becomes a lot simpler. SSLs can still learn what separates them from the top of the pro level, Grand Champs can learn what separates them from the SSL level, and Champ players can learn what separates them from Grand Champs, and so on and so forth. Okay, now, without that out of the way, if we want to think that the average rank of Rocket League is Platinum, I'm not actually sure, I should have fact-checked it beforehand, but let's just say Diamond is above average at the game. If you are Bronze to Platinum level, you can consider yourself in the very early stages of the game, and you are most likely still enjoying the game casually, and you're just having fun with it. Now, I'm not saying for any of these ranks that they aren't taking the game as serious, so don't worry, the mindset I'm going to talk about can still be applied to any rank in the game, but Diamond is usually the rank you start to take the game a bit more serious and you want to reach into the higher ranks. So, in terms of self-deprecating side of things, for some reason, no matter what rank a player is in this game, you could go to most streamers and ask them what rank they are, and you essentially get the same answer all the time. Like, oh, I'm only Champ 2, which means I'm trash. Oh, I'm Grand Champ 2, which means I have the mechanics of an SSL, but the game sense of a Grand Champ 1. Even SSL players will say, oh, I'm only low SSL, I'm only 1900, I'm only 2k low. I've had tons of people come to my chat and say, I'm only gold 1, I'm so bad at the game. Now, I'm not even sure where this mindset started from, but it's clear to me that the self-deprecation is now even affecting the lowest ranks of the game, which is ridiculous to me. I remember when I was in gold, I became obsessed with how fun Rocket League was. I used to watch Cuxer hit his pinches in RLCS. Used to watch Overzero air dribbling the ball through the air and scoring in RLCS, and I so badly wanted to learn how to do these things. But I was brand new to the game. I never once thought to myself, like, I'm trash at the game or whatever like that. Maybe I was biased because I was an athlete before, so I started playing Rocket League, and my mindset was more, I'm going to play this game until I get that good. I'm going to put in so many hours until I can do the things that these pros are doing. That's kind of how I approach things. All right, with that out of the way, enough rambling, let's get to business. The ranked mindset, if you genuinely want to improve at the game, is to only focus on yourself. Sounds easy enough and simple enough, but is it really? What I mean is seriously making everything your fault. I don't care if your teammate fucking takes your boost, bumps you out of the way, and slots it top right out of straight panic into your own net. Okay? Go to the replay and think about what you could have done differently. And no, I'm not talking about that exact play where he bumps you in on goals. I'm talking go 5, 10, 15, even 20, 30 seconds before that play happened and see what leads up to that. Typically, what a lot of people don't understand in Rocket League is plays develop like a domino effect. Usually it's not one mistake that got you scored on. It's a series of mistakes that tends to domino effect into more mistakes, and that results in the goal. You have to get it through your head that mistakes happen no matter what in this game, even at the pro level. Otherwise, how would goals go in ever? It really truly matters either what happened before the mistake or after the mistake. You know, I really blew one of my viewers' minds recently in a coaching session when I analytically broke down one of the goals he conceded and the way it was. And it literally ended up being he had flipped and turned the wrong way in a play 20 seconds beforehand, which then led to them conceding possession, getting back down on defense, and then they had some bad mistakes on the goal line that ended up in a goal. It can literally be as simple as that. At the end of the day, you don't have to focus on what your teammate's doing. Just focus on what you can control. Most players will only laser focus the mistakes that their teammates make, and then they trash talk them into oblivion, which just leads to both of you tilting and losing and forfeiting the game. If you're able to take the mindset and utilize the replay tool to the best of its efficiency in this game, you're going to shoot up in ranks so quickly, I promise you. Because in reality, Rocket League has become a game where you need to be good enough to carry yourself out of the ranks. I'm not just talking about hitting a rank or getting that rank up. I'm talking about being good enough to hit a rank and maintain it. That's truly what it means that, you know, you belong at that rank. So most people would rather point the finger than direct it at themselves. Like I said, unless you're a pro player, and even if you are, there's always something you could have done better. Most pros already have this mindset and they understand this very well, and they're extremely self-critical about themselves. And this is what allows them to keep improving at the game and being head and shoulders above everybody else who doesn't have this mindset. I also seem to see a lot of players that I coach be so nervous about queuing ranked because they're afraid of losing their MMR. Like the players that I played with back in the day who were really OG would grind the game for hours and hours. They would go down hundreds of elo and up hundreds of elo in the same session. It was incredible to me, but these players had something that I didn't back then. They knew what their rank was, and they were capable of simply playing the game and being prepared to lose hundreds of elo just to gain it back in the same session. That type of perseverance is truly what sets certain players apart from most. And this is a trait of a player who usually achieves the highest rank in the game. If you're straight locked in on the self-improvement and you just turn your MMR counter off, you turn chat off, and you make everything your fault no matter what, you're going to be such an easy teammate to play around. This is something majority of Rocket League players don't think of, which is just being a good teammate. Because of how Rocket League is nowadays, it's so mechanical, it's so fast-paced. Most players forget to do the simple fundamentals and also just forget to be a good teammate or easy to play around. I've seen poor treatment at every single rank in the game where people will trash talk each other just because they're a few 30 or 40 MMR off of each other. In reality, both these players are still learning or at different stages of learning, and they have no idea that they're just both making mistakes and not helping each other. It's a very, very selfish-minded mindset to have and it's at every rank in the game. Now, regardless of all this, I remember back when I was stuck in Champ 3 for the longest time in my career, in the OG seasons of the game, I couldn't understand what was holding me back from Grand Champ. I had the mechanics. I was air dribbling, flip resetting, ceiling shotting back in a time where not every player in Champ 3 knew how to perform these things. Because of how much I'd played the game and with the help of my higher level friends, I had better game sense, yet I was hard stuck. At the end of the day, it was my mental and my mindset that was holding me back. I'd get tilted on my teammates who weren't as mechanical as me or didn't know how to rotate right. And once I stopped doing these things and I tried to focus on just my game and making the game easier for those teammates, especially when they weren't up to par with the lobbies they were in, I became a lot easier to play around myself, and I finally got my Grand Champ rank. That allowed me to go into the free-to-play seasons pushing SSL on a console, which I will also talk about in a bit. Speaking of these things, I do want to mention a lot of the excuses that I hear from a bunch of people in chat or students when I'm telling them to grind the game. The first thing I ask people when I coach them is what their goals actually are for the game. This allows me to gauge how serious somebody actually wants to improve. And as a coach, you can give somebody all the advice you've learned over the years, but it really depends on that person and what they're going to do with that advice. I've had some students make no improvement at all and are back the next week with the same issues and the same excuse of my teammates all suck. Then I have some students shoot up 2 to 3 ranks entirely because they took the advice and laser focused it, put hard work into optimizing their own game based off of a higher level player's advice, and they hit their rank ups and they maintain those ranks. Now let's talk about excuses I hear a bunch. I want to say the biggest one I hear is, I don't have enough time to put hours into this game. Whether that be school or work getting in the way. Now, obviously, those things are important for a lot of people, and there's a healthy way to go about this. You don't have to pour thousands of hours into the game and lose sleep over it. Me personally, when I was 18 to 21 years old, I was grinding this game. I was working a full-time job, I was in college part-time, and pursuing professional soccer. So in my head, when people tell me that their school's getting in the way, if they're going to give me that excuse, then I tell them they just don't want it enough. Again, I'm not going to say neglect your schoolwork or anything like that, but at the same time, no matter how much time you have to play this game, it really matters what you're doing with those hours. I had one student I was attempting to coach tell me he had a few hours of school. I'm talking like 1 to 2 hours of school some days. And so I asked, what do you do with all that free time then? And he responded with, just free play. I couldn't blame him for this because most pros have told people in the past that they just played a ton of free play. But it's different if you're training and practicing with purpose or not. For example, someone who only practices flip resets in free play is going to be at a disadvantage versus somebody who practices flip resets in ranked games. Why is that, you may ask? Because it's a completely different situation. In free play, there's no defenders, there's no one to pressure you. You're training your muscle memory for a flip reset, yes, but that pattern recognition of a defender being in the way is lacking severely. So if you don't have a ton of time to be playing this game, then just dedicate your hours accordingly. I also hear the excuse of, oh, I'm on a console and I can't be as good as a PC player. This isn't a viable excuse for me either because there's only really 2 things that separate Rocket League on PC versus console, and that's frames and input delay. I was also a top 100 player on Xbox during the first seasons of free-to-play, Season 1 and 2, and I was an 1800 player, which back in the day, SSL was 1975. So for those of you that think SSL today is more impressive, please do know that SSL was 100 MMR harder to get back then. But in those lobbies, it was only players who understood the game at the highest level, ranked grinders, bubble pros, or pros. I'd say it was the most competitive time in ranked Rocket League history, and I was able to play in those lobbies on an Xbox, on 60 frames, with input delay. So I don't see that as an excuse whatsoever. Alright, I'm sorry, I'm ranting again, so let's move on. Alright, if we're all set to go, let's jump into the topic of the grind. One of the most repeated phrases you'll hear from Rocket League players all around. It simply just means grinding the game, playing the game, putting hours into the game. Again, I want to address that there's some misconceptions about what players mean when they say you gotta grind the game. This is one of the ways most players talk about putting hours into Rocket League. For those of you that genuinely are trying to improve, please pay attention here. I'm going to put into perspective what that grind actually looks like and what the grind looked like for 3 high-level players, including the current best player in the world, Zen. Alright, so I'm going to go out on a whim and say I think if you want to see real improvement in the game and you're trying to get that rank up, I'd say a good healthy amount of games is probably 500 to 800 games a season. If you have the time to do more than 1,000 plus games for sure. You'll see what I mean here when I show these trackers, right? So we're going to begin with my current teammate AV. I first achieved Grand Champ in Season 13 of OG Seasons. AV first got his Grand Champ in Season 2 of Free-to-Play. I got my first SSL in Season 3 of Free-to-Play, which was the last season. It was 1975. Then it got adjusted. AV got his in Season 7. So on paper, I've been playing this game longer than AV, and I was at the higher level longer than AV. So I should be better than him, right? Wrong. I'll put up some screenshots of his tracker here, and you guys can see how many games this dude was putting in before Grand Champ and before SSL. This is around the time I started streaming and my health issues started, so my rank suffered for a while. Hashtag copium. Anyway, pay attention. When I first met AV, I was giving him 3v3 advice. All these years later, AV is a 2K ELO player. He's much better than me at the game, and that's because he put in thousands of games for improvement in these seasons, which gave him that much more game sense and mechanical skill in this higher level meta of Rocket League. So now, let's take a look at Zen's tracker. So the season before he really started grinding, he was able to get Grand Champ in just 405 games in Season 8. I do believe he was Grand Champ a few seasons before that, but still, this is before he was quote-unquote grinding the game. In Season 12 of the OG Seasons, he started grinding and he put in 3,299 games in just 2s and 3s. A season before Free-to-Play in Season 13, Zen had put in 3,415 games alone into 2v2. Then you can see in Season 1 of Free-to-Play, Zen was SSL in just above 700 games. With these numbers being shown to you guys, if you wonder why Zen is that much head and shoulders above the rest, is because he has just that much more time in the game against opposition than most players. Obviously, Zen is an incredible talent and one of the best players to have ever graced the video game, but he put in the hard work. So when I see students telling me that they're hard stock and then I ask them to show me their trackers and they only have 100 to 200 games a season, it's the sole reason. It's either because their mindset is holding them back or they're too afraid to lose the elo or whatever the case, they're just not grinding the game. They don't want it enough. If you were to go and put 500 games minimum into a season, into any mode that you like, I guarantee that you'll rank up no problem. It's just like the gym. You're not going to see results if you're only doing a few reps. The body has to be trained to learn these things, and that's the whole reason I'm showing these trackers in the first place. Part of the mindset of only focusing on your game also includes putting the games in, putting in those reps to improve. Who cares about the elo and the digital points? Those things do not define you or your skill as a player. If everyone in Rocket League can escape that mindset, it would work absolute wonders for the community and the life of our ranked game mode. Alright, with all that being said, let's wrap this up and let's summarize everything we've talked about so far. So, the best mindset for improvement in Rocket League goes as follows. Number 1, only focusing on your own game, not your teammates. Your teammates don't suck, they're also trying to learn. Number 2, stop self-deprecating regardless of your rank, letter grade, MMR, whatever. Unless you are a pro, you are still learning. Number 3, utilize the replay system and all the tools you have and make everything your own fault to become the best teammate you can be. Number 4, grind the game. 500 games a season minimum. If you can't, just dedicate your hours accordingly. Number 5, have fun with it, and please be healthy about it. At the end of the day, ladies and gents, it is a video game. It does not have to be that serious. Please make sure you are still enjoying the game. Okay? Alrighty, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. If you guys enjoyed or found any of this useful, please leave a like, share, and subscribe. It goes a long way. If you guys have any more suggestions for videos, please leave them below. I try my best to respond to all comments. Make sure you guys Check out all the socials below. If you're not in the Discord, you can stay up to date with when I post or when I go live. But thank you guys so much. As always, I appreciate it if you took the time. Much love, and I'll see you guys in the next one or on the stream. Peace.